pop up. Good evening, and if you're just tuning in, you are listening live to 105.3 and 107.7 out of New Orleans, Louisiana, to United Public Radio Network, otherwise known as UFO Paranormal Radio Network, or just UPRN. And I'm the host of this show and another show. This one is The Angel Rock, and I'm Lorilei Potvin. I'm a Canadian clairvoyant medium, crystal Reiki energy healer, Akashic Records practitioner, spiritual teacher and mentor, and registered nurse. And I also have a second show that we started in the new year with my very good friend, David Hansel, who is an angel intuitive, and he's a clairvoyant medium. And we have the show's called The Thing at the Foot of the Bed. And that's Thursdays at 7 p.m. I'm going to try to remember to tell you guys everything because I want to get into the show with this guest here. I'm going to introduce her in just a second. We're also on Roku tonight on UPRN's channel on TV. So if you want to find it, the best way to find it, because I don't have a channel code for you. So you're going to sign into your Roku account. You're going to go to the channel store and you're going to do a search of UFO space P as in paranormal. There's going to be a bit of a list that comes down. You're looking for UFO space paranormal, and I think it's United Public Radio. And that's us. And you can watch us on TV. Now, if you like what you see, please like, share, and subscribe. Obviously. But also, check it out. Check out the other shows. We have one of our newer shows. She's been around for a little bit. She's got a great show. This is who my guest is tonight. We're having a pre-birthday bash because tomorrow's my birthday. So yeah, we're going to have fun tonight. But there's something for everyone on our network. If you check it out, the network, I think, has been around for almost 25 years. So when we're not streaming live, the archive server is going. Hang on, I got to grab a drink here. Sorry about that. And not a drink, just we're not imbibing at this pre-birthday party. But anyways, check it out because we've had some really incredible hosts, guests, shows, including a lot of people that we still do. We have some syndication to the network. So there's something for everybody there. So please check it out. Lastly, I think this is the last thing, and I'm going to probably have to say it a few times. If you are on Facebook and you've never been here before, and if you're open to it, could you please head over to StreamYard.com/Facebook. And all you have to do is say yes, and to them using your picture and your name, and then we know who you are. Otherwise, you just come up as Facebook user. And some people have done it, and they still come up as Facebook user. So please just put your name after when you post. I'll call you out if you're a Facebook user to let you know. And I'm not trying to embarrass you. It's just so we know who you are. But if you want to stay anonymous too, that's okay. Now, on to my guest. I should have her bio because she's got a great bio. This is Kerrilyn Shellhorn. She's a fellow Canadian like I am, and she has Spirit Switchboard on Fridays. We were talking, you know what happened? We were getting into her guest next week and her guest from this week, and then we went, oh my gosh, we got to go live. So hang on, I want to read her bio. So Kerrilyn is an internationally respected Canadian psychic medium and an author and fellow UPRN podcast host who shares her intuitive gifts to help bring healing and closure to the lives of her clients. Kerrilyn is committed to helping her clients who are struggling with their grief. She also utilizes her connection to the other side to offer guidance for life direction and management. Kerrilyn shares tools to empower her clients with their own connection to the other side. And you guys, she is powerful and she's amazing, because I've gone to one of her things and I was like, all kinds of things were going on energetically for me. She's also well-versed in the paranormal too. And Kerrilyn is determined to show people that interaction with spirits is a normal part of our everyday lives. She is the host of Spirit Switchboard podcast and author of the ebook, Stepping Through the Door and Into Your Purposeful Life. But I also want to add, you guys have heard that EVP that I played if you've been here and you're a regular, and on the thing at the foot of the bed. This was courtesy of Miss Kerrilyn. Welcome, Kerrilyn.
Hi, thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you. Well, we're going to say hi. I always do this. I always involve my audience because I always say I wouldn't have a show if they weren't here. So Kevin, who is Z Sun Dragon, says, "Hey to all waiting." And I was literally typing on YouTube. If you see it, you'll see it on YouTube. I posted, "I will be with you." And Sandra Sharp says, "Hi everyone." Judy Thompson, "Hi Lorilei." Hi Judy. And I got your message. Sorry, I was at camp all weekend, no internet. And hey Lorilei and Kerrilyn, happy birthday tomorrow, Lorilei. Thank you.
Kevin, I heard that too.
What's that?
There was, I don't know, is there a dog in the room with you?
Yeah, but she didn't bark. I thought it was at your house.
No. There was like a growl thing that happened, and that you'll have to listen. It's like it was right there when you were talking, right over top of you. The dogs aren't in the room. The dogs are out with my son.
I heard
and the
a dog
closed.
bark though, and I thought, oh, maybe it's one of your dogs in the other room.
No.
But no, my shepherd's in the room. She's sleeping right now, and I have a cat here.
Yeah, we'll have to.
Gosh knows, you guys, because I haven't been ready to come out with the saga from the previous home, but we are definitely having some issues with some activity. 2 shadow beings apparently were removed by somebody you and I both know.
Yeah.
That has been assisting with this. And the reason why is I help other people with the paranormal, but when it's very close to your situation and it's just nice to have somebody else to have a look, right? It is.
Oh, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So we'll go through these. So Z-Sun says hi to Sandra, and then he says, Lorilei. Janie Walker's here. She's from New Orleans, Louisiana. If you want to shout out where you're from, we'd love to shout it out for you too. We get people from all over the world. So you just heard. Well, I'm going to go back.
It's right at the beginning.
At the beginning, I'll go back and have a listen. Just as you were talking about UAP, I don't think we were talking about UAP, were we? No, I don't think so. Maybe UPRN.
Yeah, we were talking about our guests when you said that we were talking about the guests.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Coming up in past. Yeah.
Okay, because that's how and this is what happens sometimes, right? You didn't hear that growl on your show when you had Rick on, right?
And even when I went back, so that episode was with Rick McCollum, who is from Hollywood Ghost Hunters. So he's very well versed in the paranormal, goes over to Scotland a lot. And we didn't hear it live at all. And I found I could hear it when I went back, but if I tried to replay it a number of times in a row, it would disappear and then I couldn't hear it again. So I would have to walk away and come back and then it would play again. It was like super weird that.
Okay, so remember you asked me because I said it was caught and stuff because we talked behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a bit sooner than where I have heard it. So what I did was I clipped it and I have a recording, and every time I play it, because we played it on both shows, because I knew, well, it gives your show a little bit of a boost because she's
thank you very much.
And we're going to talk about it, but also, I mean, and I asked people what they thought they heard most, because I didn't hear the male moaning at the beginning at it, because Kerrilyn asked Rick something about, have you had
an attachment? Yeah.
And then you hear like almost like a deep male, I would say male. I'm getting goosebumps. You're going to be something in here, I'm telling you.
Because I'm watching his mouth too to make sure like there's not, he didn't.
Okay, so how I heard,
right?
So how I heard this, Kerrilyn knows this story, you guys may, but I do resin work and stuff. And I was hanging out for Kerrilyn in case she's learning how to work, to produce her own show. So I was producing that day, and I don't normally listen with headphones, and you don't need headphones, but I was about 4 feet away.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I heard, it sounded like somebody, when you were a little kid and you had like your chocolate milk or a pop, or some people call it soda. It's right at the bottom and you got the straw and you're sucking the last 3 drops out. And I'm going, who's drinking from a straw like that? And I looked up and I went, oh, nobody's drinking. Hi, Zach. Nice to have you here. So, wow. So, well, let's talk about you. It's not about me, but let's talk about you. So,
we're having, and maybe it's us. Maybe we are attracting the.
No,
the
I have a
EVPs.
strange story because, so I had my eldest son got engaged. Him and his partner at the time to British Columbia, which is on the West Coast for those of you listening here in Canada, to meet some of his family. So I had my grand puppies here for the week, right? And then we decided we were going to go to camp. And my niece and nephew on my partner's side are afraid of my dog because she does look scary. She's big. She's not. So he took her, and he was complaining to me today that he got no sleep last night. That's what he said. He goes, she had me up, she had me down. I said, honey, I had like that with 3 dogs while you were gone for the week, right? But you didn't tell me the gory details. So he showed up here just before we went live. And he knows her. Like, we got her together before he ended up going out with his fiance, and now they're engaged.
Right.
She was screaming like all night long, like, ah, ah, like making this noise, and up and down, up and down, up and down, off the bed, all over the place. Like, my son looks exhausted. And then on top of it, like, I don't like to tell him this because he gets a little freaked out. And I said to him, okay, the only time I see her get a little crazy sometimes if there's something here. And he didn't want to entertain that thought, but I have never seen her act like that. She just turned 5. So I don't know.
Crazy.
Yeah, very crazy.
But they're so in tune. The animals are in tune.
I always know, like when I work with paranormal, I always ask
definitely
people,
know.
You know, do you have young children or do you have pets? And I'll usually ask them, what's going on with them? What have you noticed? Because But let's talk about you. So have you been this way your whole life, have you felt? Or is there a moment defining you, like when you realized you were a psychic medium and you could connect with the other side? And
so since I was little.
Okay.
Very much since I was little. So my grandparents, I always say I grew up in a northern Ontario farming commune, but it's not really a commune.
Okay.
So like my grandparents had the original farmhouse and severed property for my parents to build.
Okay.
And I was 5 when we moved into that house, and was seeing people in the original farmhouse from the time that we moved into our house beside them. So it was my normal, you know.
Did you feel supported? Not like it's slagging any parent. Because I always say they do the best that they can, right? They do.
I think that there was already a lot going on within our family structure, so there was not necessarily a lot of good communication about a lot of things that was going on. Yeah. So I think for me, more that coming out of the closet.
Yeah, really, that's I always say, coming out of the spiritual closet or the ghost.
I call it the witchy woo closet. Coming out of that witchy woo closet.
I like that.
Yeah, coming out of the woo closet happened more when my children were small and having their own experiences as well too. So it was very much in our face and having to be normal and talking about it. So, you know, when I came moving from doing hair full time, so moving from being a hairstylist to doing this, I had a radio show back then when my youngest, that would have been 16 years ago, when my youngest was 2, to support kids that were intuitive. So, you know, to support them in a different way than what I was able to. So really supporting parents. And I had summer camps for kids so the kids could get together and talk about those things.
I love it.
Yeah, it was very much happened for me later in life and me taking ownership of it.
Okay.
But definitely around from the time that I was little, the same for my kiddos.
I just had a question that came to mind when you were talking about doing hair. How was that for you energetically? Because you were touching people all day long, and most of us are very sensitive to energy and other people. So how did you find that? Like, did you feel drained all the time?
Well, and it's such hairstyling is a job where is a very intimate job, no different than when we're doing mediumship, right? Yep. Or nursing, it's intimate.
Yeah. Or even massage therapy, like anything
nursing,
where you are touching people, or like crystal Reiki, even if the person's halfway across the world, right? And there's no time and space, I can go into their energy field, and you've got to basically start it properly, end it properly, ground yourself and do things, or you're going to be drained by the end of the day. That's why I thought I'd ask you.
Oh yeah, definitely draining. And you sort of intuitively know what a client is needing ahead of time as well too, right? If they're needing a no talk session, or if they're needing support. Oh, that's awesome, Sandra. I miss doing hair. Like there's aspects I miss. I definitely focused on color, not that and I've got purple hair now. Yes. I loved color. I loved doing color. So, and hairstyling is a very big part of our family. My sister and sister-in-law and my son is a barber. Cool. Like there's nobody had bad hair during COVID.
That's kind of nice. We
for
have to be
us.
careful with the C word. We have to be careful with the C word.
Oh,
Sorry.
I'm just talking about hair.
They don't care.
Really?
And the only reason I feel so bad because I have to remind Dave, and I don't know what it is
Is it
about
just
me.
it
They
heats?
come for me. They come for me. Like honestly,
They start.
I had to clear on Facebook. These I've mentioned it before. So our intro to
I'm
the
so
thing at the foot
sorry.
of the bed comes from YouTube's own copyright-free music library. I have the link. Okay. The poem, David wrote the poem. I have the copy when he sent it to me. What do you think of this? That he talks about at the beginning. He has performed it. He used some editing software to change his voice a bit. And they're going back right to the first show. And sometimes they go back, like, I'm not kidding, like 4 or 5 years for me. They're coming for stuff like, and it's not so much on YouTube.
Right.
They do. And I'm telling you, if that word is said or any of those ones, and I don't know why, but they do. So I always say, please.
So it's just the word. It's not even the context of the conversation or what's.
Nope, not they use bots, right? So I think what they do is if they find an offending word, which I know they have found an offending word, even on, we'll say YouTube, it is YouTube. And it was a previous co-host, like from 4 years ago.
Maybe we should just switch the conversation quickly before I step into trouble again.
Because I think it's good for them to know, some people, right? Like,
Yeah.
know if you see why we're using, but and some people it's fine, like it's fine, but that's why I always stop people, and I don't want to embarrass you. Sorry.
No, it's all good.
We're changing this conversation. Carrie and Lynn and I had so much fun on Spirit Switchboard. Oh my gosh, I had so much fun with you.
Good. I'm glad. That was the point. I think sometimes we need to allow people to see other sides to us, right? Like, not.
Well, I think it shows your personality, right? Like
Mhm.
don't get me wrong. I actually met somebody or was talking to somebody recently, and they've watched my shows for years, and something came up, and I had happened to mention, because I'll chit chat with people. Obviously, we all do when we meet them. Somebody had sent me a funny joke, and I happened to mention it, and they said, "Oh, I didn't know you'd be okay with that." And I said, "What? I have like the best sense of humor, of course." And so they sent me funny stuff all the way, and I thought, "Oh, maybe I don't come across with a sense of humor." I don't know.
Right. Or perceived. And it depends too. Like if we have serious guests and a serious topic.
Oh,
That's where we're going. Like, it's hard for people who are maybe just seeing us for the first time during those conversations too, right?
Well, most of my guests, I don't meet till 5 minutes before the show.
Yeah.
Like literally 5 minutes. And
yeah,
it is what it is. You can usually warm people up, and I know you have that kind of personality. I knew from the first time I met Kerrilyn, and she said hi, and I went, "Oh my gosh, I just love her. I know I'm gonna love her." You got that bubbly kind of energy. So Sandra says, "I love the feel of working with hair and seeing the results."
Right.
And I think it's an art form, basically. I really do.
Well, you definitely can change how people feel about themselves, right? And you can see that people coming in heavy and leaving lighter and drastically different, changing somebody's personality as well too. So.
Well, plus you know what I think?
Their look.
My cousin is a hairdresser, no longer right now, but she I got a dog hair in my mouth. Sorry. She loved color. Like she would win awards for hair coloring and really loved doing hair, right? But I know I don't go to a hairdresser anymore. I've got long hair. I can, it's a trim across the bottom and whatever. Plus to color it the way my hair grows. He's spending about $300 every 3 or 4 weeks. So anyways, where I was going with that is, as a hairdresser, and I'm not saying they're the same, but even a bartender too, right? People come in and like you say, they may be very down, and you're spending a lot of time as you're doing this hair color, right? And you almost become like counselor, and there's all kinds of things, because people, I imagine, would share all kinds, especially with your energy, right? They would know what to tell you.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of sharing, and a lot of clients stayed faithful for that, right? Like stayed stayed with me for a really long time, even when
I
I
always stayed.
switched. Mm-hmm.
I always stayed too. And then
You know,
we both have, well, my son has autism. We've talked about that before with the autism. So it's kind of hard to find a hairdresser that can work with your children when they're young like that. So we definitely stayed with the same hairdresser for a long time.
right? And
Mhm.
I was the hairstylist for my kiddo. That's
Yeah. Why I stopped myself because I thought I didn't ask you if we were going to talk about that or not.
yeah.
So yes.
That's okay.
Yeah.
It's
So
okay. Extra sensitive kiddos, right?
yes, there you go. Extra sensitive. And even I'd love to hear in the chat from all of you too. Um, if you are sensitive, I know there's some people here that are. If you have children, have you noticed that they also, or is it, do you think it's maybe because you're more in tune with your own gifts, but that your children have gifts, right? Like, do you,
I personally feel that my kids chose me to be their
me too.
parent to help remind me of who I was. Like, I think that was sort of what their role was, to be a teacher for me, to remember to come
I
back
couldn't
to
agree
that.
more.
Yeah.
But both of my boys, like I mentioned about my eldest, he's very gifted. Like he's been
Mhm.
teaching me, he's been able to communicate with animals since he was probably the day he was born. But as soon as he could talk, and even my son that has severe autism, he once said to me, Mummy, when he could talk, it was probably about 12, and he said, Mummy, I have superpowers. I said, oh
Mm.
my gosh, how cool. I said, like, what's your superpowers? And the first one, he looks at me and he's like, duh, he didn't say that, but he goes, I always know what animals are thinking. And I said, oh, that's so sweet. I said, well, what's your second superpower? He says, well, my autism, of course.
It
And
is
I
a
thought, what, I was
superpower.
so happy he felt that way.
Yeah.
But you know what, where I was going with this is both of these boys were so different, and all children are unique and different, but I
Yeah.
picked up at a very early age they were seeing and hearing and feeling things that may not notice. Like I know little ones, like at the toddler to almost 3 to 4 year old age,
Yeah.
and imaginary friends. Actually, I'm going to stop that. What do you think of imaginary friends when you're working with people? What do you say to people about that? If, say, working with someone, like you said, you worked with kids to kind of
Yeah.
help them accept their gifts. So what's your thoughts on that?
I don't. I've not really had a lot of clients come to me where their kids were necessarily saying that they saw imaginary friends. It was
Mhm.
very like, we're seeing something and interacting with them. So it was never necessarily called an
I'm
imaginary
so
friend, right? And
Mhm.
I've never encouraged. I mean, with my kids, it was just so normal. We never said imaginary
Mhm.
friend, like imaginary. It just
The
was
reason I
something that other
asked
people
you,
can't
I don't.
see.
Okay, the reason why, and I apologize, I forgot to tell you this before, and that's why I'm waiting for my new computer, guys, that was supposed to be here today. I'm delayed a little bit, so I apologize if I accidentally talk over you a little bit. I don't mean it. But where I was going with this is I haven't worked with someone that says their child has an imaginary friend, but
Yeah.
it comes up like, say, we both have groups, it'll come up like somebody will know
Oh,
someone.
yeah.
And where I was going with it
I
was,
correct that quickly.
thank you. That's exactly where I was going, because it's not an
It's
imaginary friend.
dismissive.
Mhm,
It's very dismissive.
mhm. Yeah, and then I always encourage people to ask too, like have a conversation with your child to find out, what is this friend? Who is this friend? I know I'm preaching to the choir to you for, with your kids, like you said, it was so normal.
Yeah.
But I just love when you told me that you worked with children with gifts and you did the camp. Like, can you talk
Mhm.
a little bit more about that for people too?
It was actually on a friend's property that was pretty
Mhm.
magical. She had a labyrinth. She
Oh,
hosted
I love it.
different spiritual events on her property, and then at a couple of different yoga studios. So the kids would get together for a week, and we had other people helping and supporting. So they got to do yoga. Did like creative outlets, and we did a lot of intuitive development at
Mhm.
a way that was easy for them to understand. So, understanding their energy, how to pull it in, how to protect it, how to push it out, how to feel the difference between their stuff and other people's stuff. We did a lot of stuff like that.
That is when I think you said it on your show. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I wish we could have heard. Like I don't keep it a secret. I live in Thunder Bay. And I would say it's kind of almost in the middle of Canada. I know you know where it is, but
Yeah.
on Lake Superior. And we
Like
never
my
had
most favorite place, right? Like Lake Superior, Northern Shore is my favorite
It's
place.
beautiful. Yeah, that's where there's no internet where I was. It's only about 15 to 20 minutes away, depending on traffic. And there's a public beach, but where the cottages are, people in the South will call it that, or camp.
Camp.
There's about camp. There's about I think there's about 6 or 7 camps. So we're right on the lake, and it's like a house, and there's like a sauna house, and it's just so beautiful out there. But there's no internet, because I guarantee you guys, if I had internet, I'd probably be doing this on the dock out there today. Hi, Howie. Nice to see you. I'm going to share a few comments here, if that's okay.
Yeah. I
So
just want to say, Zach, like that's very cool that you are able to tell that people when they're lying to you.
That's why I'm going to read it, though, because if people
Yeah.
are listening, they're going to go, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I usually just read them. So hang on one sec. Okay, so what Kerrilyn was referring to, and I'm so glad, and then please, feel free to elaborate. So Zach says, I don't have kids, but I'm very sensitive to when people are lying to me. We had a driver who was doing that last week. He was lying to my face about intentionally messing up a customer's order. Hang on. I put him on suspension without pay. When I finally received evidence of him on camera that contradicted his claims, I fired him without a second thought. Hang on, you said my gut has never lied to me. And go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. So what were you going to say to him about that?
Oh, no, I think it's great. And the more that you take ownership of it, the more that you respond to it, the more you get, like the more you receive. So you have more clarity, more confidence in how your intuition works for you. When I have people that lie to me, my whole upper lip goes numb, like I've had
really?
Botox. Yeah. But I don't get the duck face. I don't get the pouty lip look, but it feels, and if it's a half truth or a half lie, my lip goes numb from from my nose out to the corner of my lip. My lip goes numb on this side, and then I just know it's a half lie, and I just know it's like.
Okay, so how did you put that all together? Because it's not a common.
Nope, it's not.
But how did you put it all together? Like that's pretty definitive.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I have a lot of tells like that.
Mm-hmm.
Very different, signs and symbols. So it's over time, just the amount of work that I've done and having the same feeling, and then having the information coming through and what the information was. So
Connecting
putting it together. And
I didn't know if maybe you and your guides had set that up or whatever it was, right? Because I have a sign, not like that, but I have a sign that she's no longer with us, but I had a puppy, and I have a picture that it looks like a perfect heart on the carpet. And that was a potty accident from her, not Tiffy, that was the first one, Miley. And it was so perfect. It looks like somebody used a stencil. Of course, just number one, it wasn't messy. But at that time, I realized, as I was connecting to spirit too, because I've had it around myself my whole life, but really didn't make the connection to living in the extremely haunted house that we lived in.
Right.
And as I started to notice it, I guess maybe I didn't really have a conversation with my guides, but I just knew, if you will, claircognizant, just knowing that every time I would see a heart that was very unusual or made very differently, that was a sign from spirit that, you're on the right path. Keep following what you're doing. Now, what I'm talking about is, like, I have a picture. We never order from this place. It's a chain, I think it's mostly in Canada, called Pizza. And we had ordered a box of 20 chicken nuggets. And I kid you not, I have a picture of one right at the bottom that I pulled out, perfect heart. Or you're wiping the counter or the microwave and there's a little spill, perfect little heart, like things like that. So it's not just, you know what I mean? Like every time you see a heart. Yeah, but that's pretty specific.
I have a weird heart story. It might send my daughter out, but it's kind of calling my daughter out. So my daughter, we discovered in her second year of university.
Okay.
Second year. She's graduated with her master's at this point
congratulations.
Now. So, yeah. So she's on to other things. So this was when she was doing her undergrad, but we discovered that she had supraventricular tachycardia. So
SVT,
she
yep.
had
Mhm.
SVT. So she
That's
would
scary.
it was very scary, for sure. It was very scary. So she did her ablation. She had an ablation done, and so far things are really good.
Mhm.
But she on her recovery, because she was living out of town going to university, and
Mhm.
she's like, Mom, I'm just going to send you a picture. Tell me if it looks like things are healing good. But her bruise from where they went in, so they go in like an angiogram just on the
Mhm.
inside of your groin, right? In that
Yeah.
vein all the way up to your heart to do the ablation. But the bruise was the shape of a heart.
Oh my gosh.
This
Really?
whole perfect heart shaped bruise from her
You're in good hands,
heart,
sweetheart.
her heart ablation.
Yeah.
Right?
That
Like
is
it was just so weird.
uh-huh.
Yeah. It was
That
fun.
I can't even think of an instrument surgically, like even the little camera that they would put in there or any, because they'll put, or cannula and they'll
Yeah.
find, well, they have to have a camera in there. They got to see what they're doing. Never mind
Yeah.
with the
And
guy.
they have to instigate a moment. Like they have to induce the tachycardia in order to find where the node was, right? So
Hmm. Hmm.
whatever they were doing, but it ended up like a perfect
That's
heart
where I was going with this.
bruise.
So none of the instruments are shaped like that they would be using.
No, and
So,
it was big, like the way that the bruise was
oh, I
from
was
the
thinking
middle.
like tiny,
No,
tiny.
no,
The
no.
hole's not
It
really
was
big.
bigger for like from extending out from where the incision actually was. So it was this big heart-shaped bruise on the inside of her thigh.
Wow.
I know.
That is incredible.
It is incredible.
That
Like
is an incredible sign.
and goes along with, that everything's going to be okay and it's going in the right direction. And she's been
Yeah.
pretty good since then.
Yeah, and that's like I say, that's when I notice them, and I have a whole album of the strangest things that you never find in the shape of a heart, to almost like microscopic, but you can still see the shape. So I take
Mm,
pictures of them because a lot of people don't believe me, and not that I'm taking them to prove it to them, but it's also kind of nice to look through the album sometimes.
right.
Maybe it's a little bit of a difficult time or whatever it might be. We all have that, right? And you just sit
Right.
there and you go, yeah, yeah, spirit's got my
I don't
back.
I sometimes don't necessarily like all of the physical ways that the signs come in for me.
Mhm.
Like it's
Are you
not
comfortable
always
sharing?
pleasant for.
Are you comfortable
Sure.
sharing?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. I know, like with babies, my kids don't like necessarily watching me do live events because I always lift my hands up over my over my chest because it feels like that milk let down feeling.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Which
Mhm.
is, I mean, if you've nursed a baby, then you know
You know,
exactly
if
what the
you know,
feeling
you
is.
know.
If you
Mhm.
know, you know, and it's a feeling that you don't forget. So if I get
Yep.
that milk let down feeling and I get the spits like I'm gonna throw up, then I know somebody's pregnant or somebody was pregnant like at the time that the person coming through in
I would
spirit.
not like that sign.
No, no, no. But it does. It feels like energetic Dolly Parton. I go from like an A cup to a D cup. Like in my head, that's what it feels like.
Yeah. Mhm.
But and then if I depending on where I feel that milk let down to, which is super crazy. But if
Mhm.
it's at the back, then I know that a kiddo is 2 or 3 years old. And it's always accurate.
That is incredible.
Yeah, it's just super weird. But I mean it's accurate and it works. So I roll with it, right?
See, and
Crazy stuff.
for me, I hear all day long. Like, and I don't hear voices, but I have conversations. So the biggest thing
Yeah.
for me with mediumship, it's one of my newer gifts that was
Is it
always there
inside ear or outside ear?
inside,
Sorry. Yeah.
inside.
Okay.
Because some people I know can hear different voices and there's not a
Yeah.
mental issue and mental health issue. But
Yeah.
for me, it's always inside.
Yeah.
It's my voice, but I don't speak the way the voice comes through, if you will.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just know the difference. I just do. And I
Mhm.
think it gets intermingled with my higher self too, right? Because it's in my voice. But either way, I know that. So when mediumship, and I always take if there's a sign around me and I see it usually 2 times in a very short period, like could be a couple hours, could be maybe half a day.
Right.
That's my sign for paying attention. And then if it comes up again, I already know, okay, I got to investigate it, like find out what's going on, what's more with this.
Right.
And so mediumship had to do with patience. And one patient in particular, I'm told this story a few times, but so I knew it was a sign because even though I'm off permanently with my back, I kept running into patients. And there was one patient that was a twin born at 28 weeks that I had in the NICU. And then years later, and he had such a hard time. Years later, he was in the community. He had cerebral palsy. Guess who was on my
Right.
caseload? And then I hurt my back. So it was one Christmas I was out and I ran into his mom. And that was a different voice, and that was outside my ear. And I heard, "Tell my mommy I love her." So I
Mm.
already knew. She hugged me and she told me that he had passed a few months before. Of course, we both had it. Sometimes I
Yeah.
cry when I tell that story because it just breaks my heart.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing, but when you don't, as a nurse, like you don't normally see, especially if you work like in the NICU, that you're going to be looking after a child all through different ages. It was meant to be, is what I'm saying. And
Yeah.
then that happened with a few other patients that weekend. So the biggest shock for me with mediumship was it, even though I speak a couple different languages, spirit speaks so many different languages when you're with
Oh,
mediumship.
yeah.
Maybe not for you. I don't know. I should ask you that maybe. Do you find your
Um,
brains work better, or do you hear all the time, or do you get a mixture? Because I get a mixture of everything.
oh yeah, it's just it's a mixture, and
Mhm.
it's seeing, hearing, feeling, smelling.
Yes.
It's inside ear, outside ear. Sometimes they'll shift where I'm seeing them standing
Mhm.
behind the client, then the next thing I know they're behind me talking, depending on how emphatic they want to be. Like it's just all over the place.
Right. Okay, so
Mhm.
that was the biggest shock for me because anything else that I do, say psychically or whatever, I hear. I do. And you are right with mediumship. Yeah, it's not always in the mind's eye, or I call it, or inner ear. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you will hear it outside your ear or
Hmm.
experience it. But I know, like it was a shock because then I shouldn't have expected everything to be the same.
Yeah, yeah. And
Yeah,
it grows and shifts. Like I mean, the
it
more
does.
that because it is a muscle. So the more that you're using it, the more you're going to experience. I think the biggest shock for me was
I'll say hi.
when it developed and actually um, feeling fingers when they're holding my wrist because they're excited that their person's about to show up. Like you
Aw,
can feel them holding my arm because they're excited.
that is so beautiful. I love it. I love it. But everybody does it differently, right? Like, and that's the
Oh
cool thing
yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
So
And we're all going to pick up on a different vibrational level depending on where we're at with our own personal healing too, right?
I'm gonna go back. Exactly. I agree with you. And I have
Mhm.
changed and evolved, and I think we all do, with more experience and things that we learn, or a deeper connection with the other side, with our guides and the angels
Yeah.
and what have you, right? I
Yeah.
always, I believe, and most people I've met, I think, have shared that they do too, that spirit will meet you where you're meant to be at that moment. And it's not that they don't want to share more or whatever, right? But I feel like they respect our free will. So then I don't end up being, how do I put this? I'm not explaining it properly, but it's even with the Akashic records. Like some people, when I'm telling, they'll say, "What are the Akashic records? And what is this? And what is that?" And it's the same thing. Like spirit, with the way I've been with my mentor, we ask questions and we follow it with more questions and more questions and more
Mhm.
questions. But the spirit, they're not going to tell you something maybe that you're not ready to hear, or you're not
Yeah.
at, you know what it is? It's like baby steps, right? You just don't go from laying a newborn
Well,
and running.
yeah, and I think too, depending on what our personal stories are, what our personal journeys are,
Yeah.
because if we have trauma, we don't want to visually see certain things, so we can hear them telling us that particular part of their story, but we don't want to see it in our mind's eye because it will be triggering for us. Like I'm very clear about what those boundaries are for me and how I want to receive information about certain things.
I'm so glad. I'm going to get you. Hi, Lizzie. And I'm going to get to it in just a sec, hear your question. But I wanted to really, I'm glad that you said that because um, not everybody, considers it when you're mentoring people. I know, at least I found, somebody else say, and I know I went through that too, reconnecting from when I was a baby. It was always there in many experiences, but putting it all together, right?
Yeah.
And what, the questions we always hear, because I know we asked some questions and we may get to that tonight too. You'd ask, what's the worst thing, the thing that you don't always like to hear. I
Yeah. Yeah.
remember from your show.
Yeah.
And, when's my third eye going to open? When's this? And it's not that we're being disrespectful. I think we all want to know that, right?
Yeah.
So that's where I'm going with that is they'll meet you where you're meant to be met, right? And evolve. Okay, so do you want me to read the question from
Yeah,
Lizzie? I
yeah,
think it's a
yeah.
good one. Can you understand what they're, meaning people on the other side,
Yeah.
will call, saying, even if you don't speak the language? I know what you're going to say probably, but
Yeah, it's really sometimes they'll give me a word or a phrase and I may muck it up or sound similar to. But for the most part, Spirit's team, client's team, my divine team give it to me in English in a way that I can understand it. So there's
Mhm.
enough evidential information around to validate that I have the right person. I have a very clear structure when I'm working. Like I have a very clear structure and how I want the information to come in so that it's as evidential as possible before we get to all the lovey mamby-pamby parts of a session. So even dogs, like pets, animals, it still sounds like English in my head, right? But it's coming from
Yes. I
a
know what I
pet.
was going to say as I was talking, and then I let it go. I was talking in circles. Sometimes that happens. I say my mind goes 100 million miles a minute before my mouth, and that works quite fast too. Where I was going, what you were talking about is when I'm mentoring people and they'll really want to see spirit. Like, why can't I see it? Or why can't I hear it? Or whatever, right? One of the things I always share, and I'm sure we've had these conversations, so I know
Yeah.
already, but
Yeah.
we're not all going to experience things at the same time or the same way. But I've had a conversation one-on-one with a few people, like they'll say, I really want to be able to see a spirit. I really want to be able to see it. And then, we'll talk about sort of going through it and saying, but if you actually saw somebody sitting at the end of your bed that isn't supposed to be there or
Yeah.
whatever, have you really been honest with yourself about how you would react or how you would feel, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you're doing this full time, how you're going to respond can
Mm-hmm.
shift and change. Like I'm very clear. I do not want spirit in my bedroom. Do not wake me up.
Mm-hmm.
Don't touch me. Don't talk to me. Like it's a no-go zone. I need to sleep because I'm doing so much work during the day that I just want sleep. So don't bug me. But I had I had a full day of session. This is probably 8 years ago. I had a full day of sessions out of town and I was having trouble sleeping. So I went out onto the couch and I
Mm-hmm.
was sleeping on the couch.
Oh, okay.
Couch is fair game
It's not the
because
bedroom. It's not a bed.
I didn't say they couldn't touch me on. So I had this fellow. He woke me up, and he was a big burly dude, lots of facial hair, and he
Mm-hmm.
woke me up. But he woke me up by putting his face right in front of mine
Oh my gosh.
and yelling really loud, yelling "boo" really loud. And I used a
That's what
very salty word.
that would have been
Called
me
him a
in
very
there.
salty word, and
Mm-hmm.
then I went out of town for my session. So where I was working out of at that point in time at this place, I don't know who my sessions are going to be. I get a list of first names and the times that they're coming
Okay.
in, right? And that's how I would just have them rolling through the room. And this this woman came in and I looked at her and went, "Oh my goodness, I called your dad this name this morning and I am so sorry." But this is what he did. I mean, dude woke
And
me
did
up
she
by
say to you he was like that in life? So that's
totally
why he did it.
100% how
Mhm.
he used to wake
Yeah.
her up for school every day.
Mhm. Yes,
So it's like
exactly.
she knew right away that that was her dad,
So
right?
that's why he did it, right? Because the
Mhm.
opportunity was there, plus he knew that she would know
Mhm.
that that was him,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. So funny.
That's a
So
oh, go ahead, sorry.
no, 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 that's okay. It was just like it's so many ways that it was a beautiful. It's a cool story because they respect.
That was a cool story.
Yeah, they respect your boundaries. They will respect your boundaries. You have free will and it's your body
Mhm.
and you're in charge. It's your vessel. So you have that autonomy.
I do teach people that as well, and it's not I always say it's not my job to judge, but people have to most people, well, I should say most, but quite a few people, I'm trying to use the right words here,
Yep.
they
Yeah.
really think that reality TV is reality.
Right.
Now, I'm not going to name any names or anything, but there are certain individuals out there that make it seem like they just can't go anywhere and they're just being bombarded with spirit and what have you. Now, again, could that be true for them? Maybe, but then that's something maybe you might I would think you'd want to look at boundaries, because when I teach people, like you said, nobody in my room, or I've got boundaries, or I've taught
I'm
people.
just like Canadian Tire to buy a pot. Like, I just want a pot for my plants. I'm going to buy my bucket and go
You
home.
weren't in your room.
I don't want to talk to dead people in Canadian Tire.
Yeah, so you can tell them that, or what I say even to them is, whenever I put this ring on, for example, I'm open for business, or I light this candle, or whatever I do, because there is no space and time on the other side. And I understand that loved ones get very, I mean, who wouldn't, that you're going to connect with your loved one that's still here on earth, right? And that you'll be able to have communication, because I feel like our loved ones are with us whenever we think of them, or beautiful occasions.
And that's why we think of them, right? That's why the thought gets plopped into our thoughts.
Yeah. But they can have a conversation. It's not the same way, but you're able to help facilitate that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to go back to the comments here, and we'll see. We're probably going to get into all kinds of topics. Yeah, you guys will not believe the guest she's going to have on next. It's next Friday, right?
This Friday. Yep. This Friday.
Oh, it's Monday. I am so screwed up, you guys. I'm sorry. I literally got in like at almost 2:00 today. It should have been earlier. And I'm still trying to play catch up. I just got everything unpacked. I got my son back. He came back, the dog back. So I'm still getting into talking mode. What is going on here? I hit the wrong button. Sorry, guys. I want to read your comments. So I'm going to go back a bit. Sandra said, I had to, what is it going to, oh, it's not going to light up. There we go. I had to learn to block my son from reading my mind when helping him with his homework. Otherwise, he'd pull the answers right out of my head. Did you have that issue?
So it kind of interesting. Not necessarily that my son was pulling, like that my son could pull answers, or that he could pull answers out of my head. It was more, my son that is in the spectrum used to like really irritate a family member by pulling on the curtains, and he would like yank on the curtains. But on the car ride in my head, I'd be, oh, please let today go smoothly. Please,
I've been there.
I don't want him. I don't need him pulling on the. Please don't pull the curtains. But I'm thinking it in my head. And he was nonverbal at the time, and when he was verbal, he asked me why I was always saying, pull the curtains. So he was pulling the curtains because he's hearing half the sentence, right? So we were like having this conversation about what he was hearing. But it really taught me. So when I was teaching spiritual parenting, that they could hear and you could have those mental conversations with them. So for my daughter, that's what, I was able to really encourage that from a younger age. And my youngest son is having those mental conversations. So even now, my daughter and I can have a mental conversation, and we know what each other are needing. And it really came to the forefront. I think she was wanting to get over her fear of heights. And so between the Sioux and Wawa, Sioux, Ontario and Wawa, Ontario, there was a place that did
past life regression.
treetop adventures. And so it was like, you would climb up these trees and do, these kind of like rope ladders in between these big pine trees. And then you'd zip line down through this ravine. And she was young. She was like in grade 4 or something like that. Wow. Gavin was just a baby, still in diapers. And I don't have little babies. I have heavy, chunky babies.
So do I.
I have chunky babies. Like, we're out on these trails, and Gavin, he needed his diaper changed, and so I'm like trying to haul back to the parking lot. And as I'm changing him, I'm hearing my daughter in my head, I need you now. I need you now. I need you now. Oh. So I am like trying to rush back to where my kid was at. And here she is. She's like, did you hear me? Did you hear me calling for you? And I'm like, oh yeah, I heard you. And here she's like, I just need you to take my picture. And she had let go. She had let go of the ropes. But she was like carabined in, they had her all safety lined in, but she leaned back with her arms outstretched. And she was like, because she was there to get over her fear of heights, and she was doing this beautiful job, but she was like yelling at me in her head to come quickly because she wanted her picture taken.
Oh my gosh, that is
I
such an
know.
incredible story. Never mind, like, the mothers are always torn, right? When you've got more than one child, especially, and then, so
Yeah,
you're in
yeah.
panic mode, right? When you hear that, like you said, and it wasn't out loud, especially when you're hearing it,
Yeah.
you know, and I was saying the mind's eye, and then you get there and you find out what the reason is,
Yeah,
but
yeah. And as a family, we know if we're buying gifts that we need to buy them at the last moment. We need to not think about it. We need to, because somebody in the house is going to pick up what we're thinking about.
I have a moment like this. I think was it last Christmas? So my son and his now fiance was his partner. I don't know what they're doing. I always say, I'm not going to bug you. I think about you all the time. And my son he's a real character and the oldest one and a joker. And so when we're not even in a room or we're on the phone or, halfway across the room and you might be able to hear each other, right? We will finish each other's sentences or even in a conversation in a group. And he'll always say, woman, get out of my head. But
Uh,
he ended up, he was out shopping for Christmas. And I just talked to his dad literally 10 seconds before. We'd had a conversation for the youngest one. He wanted a PlayStation 4 because he had a PS3, didn't want to
right.
change, and he needed to. It was last Christmas. And I said, well, you know what? I'll talk to our older son. Maybe I'll give him a call tonight or I'll message him. And I want him to check it out, make sure it's a good deal because I don't game anymore and know nothing about PS4s.
Right.
For I kid you not, I end the conversation with his dad and my son texts me, what did you want, Mom? I said, what? I said, did you just talk to your dad or something? No. I said, well, how did you know I wanted to talk to you? I was going to talk to you later on tonight. Well, whenever I see a dragonfly, I know you want to talk to me. I
Oh,
said,
that's
where
awesome.
the heck are you going to see a dragonfly in December?
Yeah,
Well, he
yeah.
was at one of the local greenhouses. They have all these Christmas trees, and he came across the most beautiful dragonfly ornament. And he knew, and that's his sign that he set up. He's
And
never
it's good
told
that
me
he can pay attention to it and know, right?
before.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it's crazy. I know my friend, she answers, she does all the session bookings for me.
Yeah.
So she helps me out by doing sort of she does my admin
Hang
work
on, we're
for
gonna
me.
get. Yeah.
And
Okay.
her and I have that thing where we're get out of each other's head all the
Yeah.
time.
Sorry about that. Yeah. Go ahead. Uh huh. Oh, so
Yeah.
you do it with your friend?
And she lives, on Prince Edward Island.
Oh.
So even like she lives close to me anymore. So
For
yeah, we
people
can pick
that
up.
don't know what that is, Prince Edward Island is on the like far eastern coast of Canada.
Mhm.
Okay, so we got him. We're gonna get rid of this person here. Sorry, guys. Uh, okay, you're blocked. Now you're gonna get deleted. Sorry, guys. I was trying to get rid of that. We don't usually get things like that in here, but they like to try. Probably saw two psychic mediums on tonight, so they thought they'd advertise. So just so you know, and I'm going to point it out right now, Dave and I do. And I think I saw in one of your profiles too, you do the same thing. You never private message someone and tell them solicit readings or healing
Mhm.
sessions, and I don't do the same, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's funny, before we got on today, and I said I was trying to delete something really quickly from the page, and I was like looking at my photo with somebody else's name. So they were using my profile picture and had created this account to were spamming people and trying to solicit for readings.
David, my co-host,
Happens a lot.
well, he's on TikTok and he has a really big following over there. And so I was going to tag him in our show today. I always do when I go on TikTok. And normally he comes up because I do all our UPRN people kind of tag them, right? That certain people. And I couldn't find his profile. So I go to search him. I've never had this happen. I think he has 20. They've all taken his face and they've all
Yeah,
taken his name.
it's shocking.
Yeah. And they're soliciting people all the time. And that's
They don't pay
terrible.
my rent.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
don't they don't buy my groceries, those people.
I know, wouldn't it be nice?
Mhm.
So I'm going to ask you while I'm trying to scroll back here. Have you
Yeah.
ever heard of this? Because I heard about this. It's very rare. But have you ever heard or come across spirits that are kind of very motherly spirit form? Because I remember I used to watch Jason Bland's show Paranormal Soup all the time. It's still live on Facebook and YouTube on Sunday nights from 11 p.m. I think it's till 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. Anyways, I used to go there and watch it every week. This is years ago. And somebody came on in there that claimed they had a ghost that I don't usually use ghosts, so spirit, that would when he would go to work, you'd come home, and if he left any dishes in the sink, they'd be washed. And like if he left folded laundry out, they'd put it away. Have you ever heard of that before?
No.
I know. Why can't we have one?
Start the coffee in the morning for me, please. That would be an
Yeah.
awesome one.
I know. I couldn't believe this. And then a few people chimed in. But no, again, I mean, I take people at, well, you really have a built-in BS detector, like with your lip. My goodness. The first person I have heard, and I think Lizzie asked a question. Actually, I'll go to that right now. I'd love to hear your thoughts, and then I'd love to share, just because sometimes it's nice to hear two different, or sometimes the same but different viewpoints. I always say take what resonates if you're listening. But Lizzie asked, is vibration in the left foot spiritual? She was talking about this, I think, when the signs you were sharing, like with your lip.
Yeah, and so signs and symbols are going to be a weird thing because it's everybody's individual. So what one person feels it is for them may not be the same for somebody else, right? So
I agree. That's what I was going to say.
Yeah. I mean, a vibration or feet, the bottom of the feet thing, it depends on the situation as well too. So sometimes it's about needing to be grounded. Yeah. Or needing to move forward on your path, needing to walk away from something. Like there's so many different, it just depends on what the whole situation is.
I'd love to add to that. I agree 100%. And what I always tell people too, could be if you feel like you want to use cards or whatever it is, or it could be crystals or anything like that. I said, you need to remember that they could have channeled the information about what a certain crystal is or whatever it might be, right? Because people write books on it. And I say, it's always a nice guideline, but say you walk into, metaphysical store and you find a crystal and it comes with a little write-up and this is what it's meant for and the color and what have you. But maybe you can feel that vibration and you feel like it means something else. I said, then go with it because we're all different.
Yeah.
And then I was going to just share this book. I jokingly call this my Bible when I'm doing energy healing work. And the reason why, and I love what you just shared when you said with the vibration in the foot, maybe needing to move forward in your journey and all the things you were saying, because I think our body does that. Like we have saying, right? Watch your back, or I feel it in my gut, or like the body really does kind of relate to sometimes either physical, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Your spirit uses your body.
Like
your higher self will use your body to get the message to you.
Mm-hmm. And this one goes through every. Have you ever read this book?
I haven't read that book. I a long time ago, so maybe 15 years ago, I had Heal Your Body, A through Z.
I knew you were going to say
Lorilei, right?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, you do it so often that you kind of start to just know what all of them are. Like I was working 6 days a week and doing anywhere from 6 to 8 sessions a day for years and years and years.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't work that hard like that
you know
anymore.
What though, you shared that if I went to one of Kerrilyn's group healing sessions, she does all kinds of practice stuff with her groups. Well, don't worry, I'm going to give her a chance to share all this. But you actually were talking when I went to that. I think it was the cord cutting that you did after your show on a Friday, and I think I happened to be producing you that day. So I thought I go check this out. I love to learn from others, and it was really powerful. You guys, super powerful. Like I could feel all kinds of things that when you're working with energy. And I remember saying that, but I think somebody was asking they were asking a question similar to Lizzie's, and you had shared, and I shared too, but you can Google the significance, right? Of like, what is the meaning or significance of what you're experiencing physically?
Yeah. I mean, even right down to like people that do reflexology know like the bottom of your feet are associated to different organs in your body and different places in your body. Your teeth are as well too. So your teeth are also connected to emotions and different organs in your body. And if you're having issues with your teeth, so you can type in Google search, spiritual meaning of sore pinky finger on the left hand and see what resonates for you and be open-minded to it. Because, and again, everything is very different. If you were reading spiritual books, they usually say that the left side is female and the right side is male. And I'm the exact opposite. And I've always been the exact opposite when I'm working. but it works for me. The other
That's
way around.
That's beautiful that you said that, because you were so right. Like, just because it says so in a book or many books, we're all so unique and different, and there's nobody like you, right? So if you feel that what you were experiencing, and like you said, it works opposite for you, it's not a law. It's not written. It's just a
Yeah,
guideline that you share.
that's right. And you have to be okay, because you can feel very isolated and alone on an intuitive journey. Like when you start opening up intuitively and you're doing some healing work, it's raw and uncomfortable, and there's usually some snotty, ugly crying that's happening at the beginning of it, right? It's a lot. Then when you're doing it and you're seeing how different you are compared to other people, self-judgment is a big hurdle, right? So the more that you understand how it's working for you and you're comfortable with it, the more confident you can be, and the more magical life is too.
It is. Well, I'm going to do, we do it on the hour call sign and what you're listening to. So if you just tuned in, you're listening to 105.3 and 107.7 in New Orleans, Louisiana, to United Public Radio Network, also known as UFO Paranormal Radio Network, or we just like to say UPRN. So I have an amazing guest, a fellow host on the network. She has such a great show, Kerrilyn Shellhorn of Spirit Switchboard, on Fridays. And if you were joining late, apparently we had an EVP. And if you're a regular listener, you'll know that I shared it here. And then my second show, the thing at the foot of the bed. And it was it even 3 minutes in? It must have been, right?
Oh, today? Our EVP
today,
from today? Oh yeah, it was very early.
Yes. So I'm going to go back. If I can find it, I'll clip it. I'll post it. You guys know I'll share it. So
yeah.
I want to read this story from Sandra that she was sharing, if you're okay with that, because it sounds like it's a pretty powerful one. Okay. So Sandra says, I was in the 2nd or 3rd grade when, late in the school day, I suddenly looked up from my paper to the clock on the wall and started crying quietly. About 5 or 10 minutes later, an ambulance, went past the school, and in brackets, my classroom was near the road. My mom picked me up from school, and when we got home, some neighbors were gathered in the nearby driveway. Mom had me wait by the car. Hang on, I'm not going to scroll down. Oh, I can't wait for my new computer. No more slowness, no more, no more delay. So Sandra then shares, when she got, sorry, it's not lighting up for me here. Come on. When she got back, we went inside, and she said she needed to tell me something. And I said, I know, Mama, Kristen died. She asked me how I knew, and I told her what time. And then she says, Shell, come on. You're not going to show. I started crying. It coincided with her passing. And she said, Kristen was a year younger than me. I want to make sure I haven't missed anything else, Sandra. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing. That's a lot for a little person.
A little person, yeah.
Right. And to not feel responsible for the things that, that we receive. And it's really just to hold that loving space. That's a lot.
And I know that Sandra's super intuitive, and she's a regular viewer of the show as well. So I think I've met her in your chat when I've been in there too. So she's been a really good support of a lot of our shows. And I've shared on this show a few times that my dad's one of 17 kids. Apparently my grandmother, she was a miserable woman, but I kind of know why. Apparently she was pregnant every year for 25 years. Good French Canadian Roman Catholic family, right? Anyways, my dad is towards he was about 12. So he's sort of on the other end of closer to the younger ones. And he had an older brother. I believe that was his second oldest brother. And I guess the family would all gather for supper time. So this would have been in the 50s. I was nowhere to be seen, obviously. But as my dad would tell the story, I guess my uncle didn't show up for supper. And then all of a sudden, my grandmother, he's told me the story many times as a young child, but I think it was like 6:03 p.m. or something. And my grandmother stood up crying in hysterics, saying his name and saying he's dad. And my dad always said he remembered his father saying, please sit down. You're scaring everybody. He's probably just late. He's out with his friends. He'll be here. And she was so insistent. And I guess what had happened was back in the 50s, they worked on these cars, my uncle and his best friend, and there were no seatbelts, and they were hot rodding down the highway. And my uncle's car door opened,
Oh
and
my
his best
goodness.
friend ran him over at 6:03 p.m. The police showed up. I guess it was probably about an hour and a half later.
Wow.
So there you go, right? We pick these things up.
Mm-hmm.
So now I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I want
Okay.
to hear. Yeah, I knew. Making me feel serious.
I'm ready.
I always say, when I do a show, I literally say before I do it, Spirit, where are we going to go with the show tonight? Because I know Spirit knows who's going to hear it live or who's going to hear the replay. And it kind of guides the conversation maybe for things that maybe people could want to hear, maybe need to hear, whatever it may be.
Right.
So, yeah, so let's get into the spooky ooky kind of silly this last hour. I had so much fun with you on your show. You know what really stuck with me, and I don't know why. And we didn't review any of the questions. She just asked me if I'd be open to any kind of questions.
Yeah.
When you asked,
if you'd be open to playing.
yeah, you did. Yeah, now that I think of that, that's wrong saying any kind of questions. When you asked me who I fangirled about, I never thought about that.
Oh.
Ever.
Yeah.
I haven't shared on here.
Oh.
Watch Kerry's show to find out who. So, how did you get more into the paranormal? Because, I mean,
I think I was more into the paranormal.
Okay.
Like I was always into the paranormal. So the paranormal was something that I did privately for myself, just out of interest and loving history, loving architecture, those sorts of things. So the paranormal was.
Okay, so where I'm going with this is after your show, we chit-chatted a bit, and then she mentioned something about red-haired giants. And I went,
oh yeah.
I've been researching this. I've had nobody really talk about it. I really wanted to do a show. So even that, like, how did you find out about it, or what made you think of it? Like, how'd you get into it?
I honestly don't remember the search that I did. I just knew I wanted to do a show about giants. So then I found a couple of stories about the Paiute tribe near Colorado, and then it landed on an article about the red-haired giants of Lovelock Cave, and yeah, these miners in the early 1900s found these bones that went to the museum, and they got quote unquote lost.
Always.
Yes, lost. But then later I found a fellow who wrote a book, and that's what it's called, the Red-Haired Giants of Lovelock Cave and Other Mysteries. So Floyd Wills will be my guest this Friday.
I'm glad, because I have my
show.
days mixed up. Like, I don't know why I thought it was still on the weekend, and I'm not, because it's Monday.
Yeah.
So I will be tuning in this Friday for sure.
But super excited about having him on, because
but we talked a little bit off air about this. Like, they're all over the world, the giants.
Yes, and that's in his book, like Peru, Mexico, they're
Sardinia,
all over.
Italy.
Yeah, they are all over. And migrating, like, that's something that he'll talk about as well too. Did they migrate? There are giants in the United States. There's giants that have been found in the United States. So
I think I sent you that video clip. Just one sec. I want to do a quick shout out to Roger and Faye. I see you there. We love you too. No problem. And I'm glad you popped in. I just wanted to say hi to them. No, but where I was going with this, I love Nuke's Top 5 on YouTube. Like, don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm in love with it, but the reason why I like it, he never tells you what to think. He gets clips sent in from all over the world. I've seen him debunk some clips. And I like that. And there was a reason. Did I send you that video of the guys that were deer hunting, and they were not looking for giants? It was somewhere in the US. I think
so. Yep, I think you sent it to me.
Okay, so what were your thoughts on it? I think if you haven't been here, it's on one of the most recent or like it's probably about 2 videos ago on Nuke's Top 5. These guys are, to set it up, are deer hunting and sort of scoping
That's the
out.
one where they have the weird, sorry to interrupt you, the
No,
the
go.
heavy Southern accent.
Not really, but
It's not the one that, because I was watching your show with David on Thursday last week, where you guys,
okay.
you were watching a video then.
Oh my gosh, no.
That
What
was
they
a
would
Bigfoot. That was a Bigfoot. I'm
big,
confusing
the
my.
crazy Bigfoot that could have looked like a bear. It could have been people wearing hairy suits.
Yeah. I
Like,
was watching. I was in on that one.
and then the same with the and I found out that that was a hoax too. The
Well, it looks
UFO.
like. Yeah, that's too bad.
I sent it to Dave because apparently it was guys wearing spacesuits and stuff, but were using jetpacks and flying all around and doing really evil things in Peru. And that video went clip. Yeah, that's what I came across. And it's a
Wow.
reputable ufology person. I'll have to remember to send it to you. And I didn't watch the whole thing, but he went into it and they debunked it and they were able to prove, yeah, who does that? But,
I
and they
don't
were
know.
really hurting like the citizens. This was in Peru.
Wow.
And of course it got twisted like the game of telephone, that it was now aliens visiting and they were doing horrible things and taking people's lives. And it wasn't, it was all a hoax.
Wow.
Now these guys, getting back to our giants, because I had a million questions, like why the red hair, like the Kandahar giant in 2006 with the US military.
Yeah.
But this one was, they were pretty far back, but they weren't looking for giants. I don't even think they were hunting. I think what they were doing was scoping the area out. Was there deer that came through here?
Yeah.
And where the video starts out, a deer starts running past and there's another one and it's quite far away. And then the guy doesn't really notice at first. And then he looks back, he goes, I think his name was Dave. Dave, you got to see this. And this looked like to me a giant running on all twos, but he almost looked like he has capri pants on, like women wear those in the summer. I should say usually anybody can wear them, mid-calf length. And he has no shirt on, or it's something that I couldn't see. But this thing is massive. And he's going from running on all twos to almost knuckle running with his legs behind him. And I don't know if I sent that one to you, did I?
No, I don't think I saw that one. I saw you sent me ones with the Canadian fellow.
Oh, that one too. I tried not to bombard you because there's so much up there.
There's a lot about giants. And so we're going to have that conversation. Yeah, because Floyd also has a bust of what one of these heads may look like.
Now,
well
does he
too.
think they're alien? Does he think they're introduced? Or do you want to save that for your show if you do that?
Yeah, we're going to save it for the show because he actually has a whole couple of other chapters about aliens, grays, and reptilians. And so I'm hoping to get him back on the show to talk about those on another episode. Yeah. So it was kind of great the way that his book is set up because I think we're going to get 2 shows out of it.
I want to know why the red hair. And this girl reached out to me. She lives in Sardinia, Italy. This would have been about 4 or 5 years ago. And I just knew intuitively there was something really special about her. She'd seen our TV episode. And I got to know her. And actually, she's an only child. This girl is so talented. We had kittens back in my old house. And we had found people who were we thought very responsible. This was someone my eldest son worked with. And I guess he put the kitten on a lead with a collar, but the collar was too big and the kitten got away. So I call this girl my adopted daughter. She's one of my mods in my group. She could touch the picture just by me sending it to her and her printing it out of what this kitten looked like. She was able to, she's never been to Canada, never been anywhere. She was able to tell me what the streets were that were intersecting, like just so dead.
I love remote viewing. Remote viewing is an art for sure, but I love remote viewing.
I don't have exact control over it. It kind of comes and goes, or like I couldn't sit down and do, I guess I can. I've been trained how to, some people do it naturally. I'm guessing you're probably one of those people. And then you can learn how to do it. So, no, So I asked her because we had just watched this documentary about 5 or 6 years ago about the giant tombs in Sardinia. And same thing like you said, all these bones are disappearing. Like as
Yeah.
soon as somebody discovers it. And she
Yeah.
says, no, I don't think I've ever heard of that. I said, how could you not hear about it? Because she said, like, you can't access Sardinia. Most of you will know, probably from geography, unless you go by boat or plane. And she said you can walk from one end of Sardinia to the other in about 4 hours. So it's not very big. And she goes, yeah, I don't think I heard anything about that. I thought, oh my goodness, how could you not?
Yeah, that's crazy. But we're definitely going to be talking about cover-ups and conspiracies attached to giants on Friday.
That's the one thing with that word. I don't like that word conspiracy. I love the word truth seeking. I know where it came from, conspiracy, and why it's out there. But
Yeah.
right, I think that that's really what we're doing, aren't we? Even when we're looking into
Truth-seeking?
yeah, truth seeking with the paranormal, like looking at it, like what
Yeah.
is this? Does it make sense? You know, are we seeing it often? Can we prove it? You know what I'm saying? Like, I
Yeah,
don't know.
it's definitely researching and having lots of questions, like wanting
Yeah, there you
questions
go.
answered, right?
Mhm.
And researching all the questions that we have, because I always have 1,000 questions. Red
So do
hairs,
I.
but red hair, I think like a hairstylist as well too. And I'm like, oh, so was there like a dark haired giant and a blonde haired giant? Because then
Mm.
you really got your
Okay, so
odds up
this is
for
a
red
thought.
hair.
Okay, this is a thought. So the owner of our network, Joe Montaldo. Hey, Joe. He produces the network out of New Orleans, Louisiana in his home. So I know he can hear us in the background. And I want to thank him because he's provided this platform
Yes.
for all of us to do our shows.
Yeah.
But he also has a website, and I believe he's one of the founding members of the International Center for Alien Research, or ICAR. And he's been doing well over a 20-year study. I know Sandra went there because she asked me for the address of it. But apparently before 70,000 years ago, there was no DNA component in any way, shape, or form for red hair, green eyes, or Rh negative blood.
Yeah.
So
So
why do they have the red hair?
So
That's
Flo
what I'm
talks about
thinking.
that too. Is what's the alien component?
Mhm.
What's the alien component?
But that's what people report, right? So I just
Yeah.
found that really, really strange.
And is it Nephilim? Nephilim, the
Oh, the
angel.
Nephilim.
Nephilim.
Nephilim? Mhm.
Nephilim. Yeah. So there's that we're going to talk about as well too on Friday.
Ooh. I was going to ask you a question, and I heard Spirit say, no, don't ask it, because I know why, because you're going to talk about it, and then you brought it up with Nephilim. Oh, here, Sandra says, let's see what she has to say. If you're doing it to find answers, it's truth seeking. If you're doing it
Exactly.
to feed your paranoia, I guess, but to somebody, right?
Intent matters for sure. Everything's about intention.
But I think if you're okay, so if you look at it and somebody's they're scared, they're afraid, right? And they're looking for answers because we sometimes I think it's been proven you can't really think too clearly when you're in the state of fight or flight or freeze.
Yeah.
So you want answers. And if people I think something resonates or gives them a sense of safety and you're coming from a place of fear, you could see why to them it's not really conspiracy, right?
Unless
They're
you're
looking
trying
for
to feed
truth. They're looking for
yeah.
truth.
Right. But I mean, it doesn't matter what your opinion is, you're going to find something on the internet to support it. So your intentions matter, right?
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. Okay, so now I got to ask you, what other questions did you have on there that was silly?
So
Just to start us off.
I was trying to think about that. I was trying to think about what the other questions because I tossed my paper out, which was probably
Oh,
bad.
that's okay, because I have more questions for you, but
Yeah, no, I tossed the paper out, but I think I had 6 questions that we didn't get to on
okay.
that on
That's
that.
okay. I
But
thought
in
it
my head, I was like, those were questions for that day, and if I remember them when we do this
got you.
again, then they were meant for that day, you know?
I
That's
hear
kinda how
you.
I thought about it. Yeah.
Okay, so I keep hearing this over and over within not out loud. I don't hear voices, people.
Yeah,
But what was your
I do
craziest
sometimes.
paranormal experience? Because I've heard that nonstop. If you probably notice, I kind of seem distracted because I keep hearing it and hearing it and hearing it. To
Yeah.
ask that. If you're not
So
comfortable, that's okay.
No, that's okay. I don't know what my craziest, like, I struggle with those kind of questions, like, what's your favorite? I don't know. It depends on my mood, the day, and
Okay, then I'll
all that kind
rephrase.
of stuff. But I can certainly, like, I've had lots of very neat paranormal
That's exactly
experiences.
where I was
Yeah,
gonna say something that's very
lots of neat.
memorable, or,
Yeah.
you think about it from time to time, or it was
So
unusual.
if we're because we've been talking a lot about teaching today, right? And educating people.
Yes,
So I'm gonna choose the paranormal experience
I
as
love
a
it.
teaching moment as well too then, because that's kind of how we've
I
done
love it.
our time together today. So when I first started kind of coming out of the witchy boo closet,
Yeah.
um I had saw a person that was going to be on
Mhm.
a podcast talking about doing angel readings, and she called
Okay.
herself an angelologist. And
Okay, I've heard that, yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
and I felt very pulled to her, and I didn't know why. So I sent her a quick email saying, I'm not sure, I'm not asking for a reading, I don't want anything like that, I just want you to know that I'm going to be listening. And she emailed me after, and she said, hey, I noticed you're from Canada. Do you know anybody that would host me so I could teach up there? And I did. I had a friend that was opening up a spiritual store, who was looking for
Okay.
people to come in. So how's divine timing, right? How spirit
Mhm.
works, right?
Yeah.
And so I had connected them. She gifted me an intuitive development day, because I really hadn't ever had a teacher or a mentor or
Oh
anything
my
like that,
gosh.
right?
Mhm.
And so during that time period, she, if people were asking questions, she would say, ask Kerrilyn,
Oh,
ask
really?
Kerrilyn. Oh,
That's so
yeah.
cool.
Ask Kerrilyn, ask Kerrilyn, ask Kerrilyn. And I remember crying. I broke out crying, and I'm like, I'm just a mom. And
Aw.
she's like, no, this is
No,
what
you're
you're
not.
meant to do.
Mhm.
So buck up and do it. And
Mhm.
by the end of the weekend, she had asked me to co-host her radio show with her that she had. And
Oh,
within 3 months, I had
wow.
my own show. Like, it was really fast. But after that, like, I just trying to set it up where my mindset was at the time, because my oldest son, who's now 30, I think
Mhm.
was 15 or 16 at the time.
You were
Um,
1 when you had him, I can tell.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was
You
young.
look very young.
I was 21. I was 21 when I had him. Anyway, so I got home, and we were in a house that was like kind of like a halfway house
Mhm.
for teenagers that were going through the courts that also had addictions. So it was turned back into a home, and that's where we were living at the time when all of
Okay.
this was going on. So there was a lot of energy that was in that house, and
Mhm.
my oldest son was getting really affected. So he was um, he was awake all night, and then
Mhm.
he was sleeping during the day. He was swearing at me. There was definitely something that
Wow.
was affecting him. So I went into his room, guns a-blazing, that I was going to remove whatever was in that space and was affecting him. And as I stepped into that room, I got growled at, and you could hear it. And it was something that I've never seen before. I don't know what it was, but it growled. And then um my arms were burning from my wrist to
Oh
my
my goodness.
elbow. And when I stepped out of the room, I had 3 scratch marks from my wrist to my elbow. And I remember going into the bathroom. I made a bath, put some crystals in, some salts in, and then I called the woman who had given me that intuitive development weekend. And I'm like, you are freaking crazy if you think that I am going to do this for a living. You are crazy if
Mhm.
you think that I am going to do this for
Oh my
people. And
gosh.
she said to me, when you went into the room, did you ask your angels, guides, and loved ones to protect you, watch over, and to be of service, or did you make it about you? And I'm like,
Okay.
yeah. I had made it all about me. I was going to clear out that space.
Mhm.
I was going to, and it's not. We're just being of service. So, when I went back in the second time, being of service and getting my ego out of the way and just channeling what I needed to channel and asking my divine team to watch over, guide, and protect me while I was doing the work, then we cleared it out. And it was like 2 days, you could see him like right back to normal, and the energy was lighter, and there was no issues. And removed, the door, the energetic door that was
Right.
open in that space had to be moved out onto the property somewhere else. And there was a
Right.
lot, but that was definitely, it was monumental because it really taught me that if you're going to do any work like this out of ego, spirit's going to knock you down
Always,
really quick.
always, always.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hmm.
always, always.
Yeah.
And whenever and it feels good. Like people like to help other people, but I think that we're in these fields or any field where you're dealing with other
Yeah.
people, even hairdressing, we talked about that at the beginning or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
But when you have a lot of things that make you feel really good, right? Sometimes it goes to your head, but that's the beautiful thing I think about spirit. I have to agree 100% because they remind you that.
Oh, quickly.
No, that's not what I always say. I'm just the mailman. Well, mail person, I'll say, and I am.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it feels different. Like you physically and energetically feel different when you're working than when you're not working.
Mhm.
I mean, I do anyway. Like there's on, and then when I'm done. When I'm done, I feel like a mashup of Al Bundy and Homer Simpson. I just want to be drooly on the couch
Oh,
in comfy
really?
bits.
I was
Oh
going to
yeah.
ask you. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah.
But
That's the best visual I can create for
yeah,
people.
but I think you said some important, powerful things here. Okay. And you were able to compare it and this beautiful mentor that you have. I'm going to give Joy a huge shout out. Hi, ladies and fellow viewers. Happy Monday to you. I'm so glad you're here, Joy. Nice.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
glad
you for
all
that.
of you are here. But I know Joy. I've known her for quite a few years and I haven't seen her in a bit. She's been popping in a little bit over the last month or so to both shows. So I really appreciate it. Thanks. I like that you said that though. Like you said, it gives a visual, but I think that that's a powerful story that you shared. And the
Mhm.
reason why is because some people love to hear more of the spiritual stuff and more the spooky ooky kind of stuff, right? And that was such an incredible, I think, mixture to be
Mhm.
able to compare and where you were coming from, like truly powerful.
Yeah, and understanding like we can choose to not do this work. We can choose to, even though we have these gifts, right?
Mhm.
I do find though, um, you still have to accept if that's who you are, because if you try to push it out, you will physically get sick as well too. So trying
Yeah.
to deny who you are can make you physically sick. Stepping into who you are can create a magical life for sure.
Mhm.
And that all of it is something bigger than us, and we have to accept that.
I
Like,
agree 100%.
like it's
Okay,
just
so
more than us.
I'm going to ask you a few questions. Hello, Michelle Pratt over in Australia. She says, "Good day,
Good
all."
day.
So I got to ask you now, since I said we were going to get a little silly, not in a fun way. And I want to hear
Sure.
your thoughts too, all of you in the chat, if you're willing to share. It's nothing personal. So if you had to choose, maybe you can't choose. What would you choose? UFOs and extraterrestrials or Bigfoot?
To have an experience with?
Even an experience, researching, whatever it may be, or just even a preference.
That's really hard because they're so no, I would say Bigfoot.
Would you?
Yeah.
Okay, so I was going to tack that on, but I wanted to see. So if you had to choose, because my word would have been both, I can't choose, right? But you did,
Right.
so I'm so proud of you that you can choose.
Yeah, I chose Bigfoot because it's been such a big part. Like I have always wanted to, and I have a leather Bigfoot silhouette keychain
Would
that
you?
I've had. Oh yeah, like I've
Oh,
had it
I got one
forever.
for you.
Forever. Like I just have a lot of
I'll see.
books about it, but then at the same time I have a lot of alien stuff as well too. So I don't know. Bigfoot I think has been the longer fascination.
Cool. That's awesome. Because I was looking for it when you were talking, because I think I do resin and I got a mold. I hand painted it, but I'm making a bunch of them. They're keychains in the shape of a foot and they almost look a little bit jagged if there would be some fur.
Yeah.
And inside is a scene. And the one that I chose, it's Bigfoot holding the hand of a little alien with a
Oh,
spaceship
that's
behind.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's awesome. The very first, oh no, I don't think it was the very first time. close to, though, that I had ever left Canada, went to the United States as an adult. I went to Santa Cruz, and just outside of Santa Cruz is a Bigfoot museum. And
Oh, so cool.
yeah, there's an older fellow in there who has so many artifacts and foot
Wow.
imprints and a map of trails with, sightings all pinned on it. And I talked to him for hours. I just kept asking him question after question after question. And he was so kind to me. And yeah,
Well,
so
how
I've
can you
stayed.
not be that if you're going to put that much effort and passion and energy to a collection like that?
Yeah.
He was
He looked
probably
like Santa Claus.
he.
Yeah.
Oh, this. Oh,
Yeah.
he was probably so thrilled, and he could tell
Yeah.
like you were really genuinely interested, like you really
Hmm.
wanted to know, and you had a lot of questions. I
Yeah. I
think
just
that's
wanted to hear his stories.
mhm.
I just
I
wanted to
love
hear
to
his
hear
stories.
people's
Yeah.
stories. I
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Because
They're fascinating.
I don't know. I don't think, especially in this fast paced um, digital AI environment,
Yeah.
especially in the Western world. And I actually did a video. I went live on Instagram for the first time. And I said what had happened was it was an email conversation that was completely misconstrued. I didn't say anything negative or unprofessional or anything. But the thing was that I think they took it a certain way rather than the way it was intended. And
Oh.
so I did a live. It was with one of my subscriptions that I have. And I guess the owner who had owned it for years didn't tell anybody. She just sold it. And the person that took it over hadn't told anybody either. And it got so blown out of proportion. And I thought, you know what? If I could put this out there, maybe they could see and where I was going with it was with email and texting. And anybody that knows me and you know it, other people in here know it, I always voice message. And the reason why I do
Yeah.
is because I find that texting and people will agree, and emailing, you don't get the context. You don't even get really as strong of an energy, if you will, or meaning behind why you're communicating.
Yeah.
So I talked about that, the lost art of communication versus the digital age, basically. So,
Yeah.
mhm.
And I find too, like, if you're energetically sensitive, then you are aware. Like, I have friends that we snail mail still, like, because
Yeah.
it's exciting to get mail in the mailbox, right?
Hmm.
But if you are an energetic person and understand the exchange of energy, then you put all of that in. So my friends that are receiving that, they feel that hum.
Hmm.
Even, when I've had guests send their books, you can tell the difference between a client that's sending you their book, or like a guest that's sending you their book, and they know energy and they put it on because the
Oh, yeah.
envelope hums when you get it,
Yeah. Yeah.
versus it just coming off a shelf from somewhere else, right?
I love it. I love it. You said that. Like I said, I think it was so powerful with that story that you shared, or even snail mail. And we really are losing the art of conversation. And,
Hmm.
I think we could have way less drama in the world and misunderstandings, and there's a lot of, so it depends, like over the last few years, especially a lot of division. And I think if we just took the time to just actually hear one another and have a conversation, like
Yeah.
not just hear, I should say, but listen, hear what that person is saying to you.
Yeah.
I think we'd
Because
have a
so
lot.
many people don't get heard or have other people to talk to.
Mhm. Like Santa Claus, the Santa Claus guy, I bet you, like, I'm sure people went through there, but nobody went and asked with the passion that you did. And you truly meant it. I can tell that you did just
Oh,
from.
yeah. Because
Mhm.
I emailed them back and forth for a number of years after to stay in
So
touch with them.
cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
Michelle has a good question for us. She said, is Bigfoot connected to aliens? What's your thoughts? I think is what she was asking.
So I did an episode, if you guys want to go into the archives.
There you go. Yes.
Yeah.
She
If you
has
want to,
great guests, and it's a great show. You guys know, and I do. I talk about a lot of
thank
the
you.
newer hosts, but you really have a great show and really good guests.
So I had, yeah, on this episode, I had Thomas Seawood from British Columbia.
Hmm.
He is First Nations. And so I had him come on because I wanted the First Nation um, oral stories to be told about Bigfoot, because I really resonate with how they view Bigfoot as a tribe that has been pushed back.
Hmm.
And, his take on Bigfoot is quite interesting. I'm not necessarily sure that I feel Bigfoot and alien are like
Connected.
combined. Yeah, that they're connected.
Mm-hmm.
I think that places can have both experiences happening
Mm-hmm.
at the same
Yeah.
time,
Mm-hmm.
but
That
I
makes
don't.
sense. No,
Yeah,
because
I don't necessarily feel, I believe like that Bigfoots are protectors for aliens, or Bigfoot
oh no, I don't think that either.
dimensionally enters in first and then aliens show up. Like I don't necessarily.
I hear
And
exactly.
maybe I've just not seen evidential information about
No,
that
I'm agreeing with
correctly, but
everything you're saying,
yeah.
and they don't have to be connected. But even if they were, right?
Yeah.
I
But
always
Thomas Seward was a great guest, and his belief system and his stories were fascinating. So I was
did he talk about the little people? Because I was going to ask you about
no,
fairies versus
he
unicorns, but
he's going to come on and talk about that on another show
oh,
for sure.
awesome,
But I
awesome.
do have
Okay,
Joshua Kitchen. Josh
okay,
Kitchen coming on the show August 25th.
okay.
He's wrote a number of different books. So he actually has a book talking about whether what we believe as fairies. So it's children missing in the dark. So where those in that belief system during that time period
Mhm.
were fairies, what they could relate to, not necessarily understanding aliens. So were alien abductions of children the backbone to, fairies stealing your children in the middle of the night? Was it really aliens stealing your children in the middle of the night?
Okay. See, I love fairies. I do a fairy garden every year. I never thought
There's
my
all kinds of different elementals, though.
yes, there is. Have you heard of Varla Ventura ever?
Mm-mm.
I'm long overdue to have her back on. She's become a very good friend, and she has written one book is The Strange and the Unusual. The other ones are on werewolves and vampires, and she's written about the paranormal,
So fascinating.
fairies.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember what the other one was. And I think she leaned more towards a Celtic type history just because that's where she did her research
Yeah.
and those are her history. But I always freak her out when she comes on because she was on and we were talking about that, and then we got into a chat about gnomes and dwarves and things like that. And I kept saying,
So
"Well, haven't you seen the videos?" And she's going, "No." So I sent her the videos, and she said, "Oh my gosh! Like, where did these come from? Like, why did I not see these before?" I said, "I don't know how you didn't see them."
But we get so caught up in our own lane doing what we're doing that we sometimes miss all the other stuff that's happening around. So it's great that we have people that will share. I mean, I definitely had elemental experiences with fairies for sure.
Okay, would
For
you share?
sure.
Would you share?
Yeah, yeah. I
I'm not
don't
trying to put
share.
you on the spot. I'm not trying to
Oh,
put you
no,
on.
no, no. It's definitely, I'm okay to share what my experience is because I don't necessarily understand what my whole
Mhm.
experience was, to be honest with you.
I agree
Um,
with some of the
the
ones. Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I really
myself
don't
too.
necessarily understand it. So I've always been drawn to Brian Froud's Fairy Oracle deck, right? So
Okay.
Brian Froud was also connected with the movie Labyrinth. So think
Oh,
of the characters from Labyrinth, but
I
these are
think
the
I've
Fairy
seen
Oracle
it.
cards, right?
I'm picturing what you're saying. I think I've
Mhm.
seen it. It's very beautiful, but yes, very close to Labyrinth.
So with the fairy oracle cards, they move. They fluidly move. The faces move. They come alive. And at that time when I was really wanting to work with
Mhm,
elementals, I saw them. It was setting the intention, and they looked like these little lights that were in
mhm,
the bushes when I was walking. So I wanted to know if I had. Um, a spirit guide that was an elemental, like, that was a fairy elemental,
mhm.
and, I was driving I
Yeah.
was driving in my car, I wasn't even out in nature, which tossed me for a loop, and all of a sudden, I had this whole memory hit me, and I saw her name, I saw what she looked like, and she pulled me from my third eye down into my heart, but it was like I was going in a tree. Like it was
Oh, so
down into this
cool.
tree.
Mhm.
And then I had this whole sort of healing experience, but I was driving. I pulled over because I started crying. I
Aw,
was crying. It was loving and warm, but I understood when she's coming in and why she comes in when I'm doing certain work. But it was a very powerful experience. And I know that you need to be mindful because they are trickster. There's tricksters as well too that will
absolutely.
trip you up
Mhm.
and send you sideways, right? But I have not had that experience.
Well, yeah, you have to, I think, have boundaries. And I've always been drawn to angels, unicorns, dolphins, and fairies. And I want to give you a little bit more time even to talk a little bit about your book. We got a little bit of time, and then I'm going to give you time to tell everybody everything you got coming up and how to get a hold of you and your great group and
Right.
the whole thing. I had the craziest, well, there were so many crazy things that happened in that previous home of mine. Like, if I hadn't been there, I don't think I would have believed it myself. But I met somebody in a group I used to be involved with that was much bigger. And I was working with a new person that had joined the group, and he was quite young. And we got to become friends. And he said, I know you. And I said, yeah, I know we know one another. We've become friends. He goes, no, I know you. He goes, but I used to know you as Maeve. And all of a sudden I heard, my name is Maven. And then he told me who I was, apparently part of the fairy realm, but not, and he gave me the name.
Yeah.
I was his sister, but he described me, okay? And I was neither good nor bad, but I had a penchant for if you crossed me, you would know my wrath. And he described me with this black, tall crown of thorns and what have you, just black, straight hair down the back. He
Yeah.
said I was a sister to Lady Titania from one of Shakespeare's or whatever. I don't know if that's true or not, but I can tell you when I did my Reiki attunement
Yeah.
and it was recording, she described me. She goes, I don't know what that was with you when we came to the seven-pointed star. It's one of our signs we use. And she described me explicitly like he did. And they never talked about it. They didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And then she goes, I had this statue I didn't even know I had, she said, and I ended up taking a picture. I'm going to send it to you. And it was of a fairy. Like
Oh,
there's just
interesting.
too much there that
And I
there is
think
no way.
I'm really glad that you shared that because I don't share that story very often either
Mhm.
because that's what it was for me. Like I was part of that world at one point in time and she was helping me remember that
Yes, I love
I
what you
was
said.
I was part of that world. And I mean, it makes me I have just lots of questions about it. Is it from an alternate reality, alternate dimension?
Oh,
Is
I
it
have so much more to
time?
that story. That's a short
Yeah,
version. So,
right? It gets pretty trippy and you do like when I still for as long as I've been doing this full time, I
mhm.
still get people that look at me sideways when I say what I
Oh,
do for a career and for a living. But
yeah. Mhm.
then when I tell them like it helped me, put my kids through school, then
Yes.
they
And
shush.
you're doing what you're meant to be doing, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I want to give you
Helping
just
people.
because I wanted to throw in about the unicorn, but we'll have to do it next time you come on. I'll tell you all about it.
Okay.
But I didn't even get into your book because I want people to hear about your book and everything.
I have a confession about that ebook.
Okay.
I have a confession.
Okay.
So I wrote that ebook a long time ago. And it channeled out at a friend's house, the friend that was, hosting me and really took care of me when I was
Yes.
at a very low point. And she took care of my kids and it channeled out. It channeled
I love it.
out over a weekend. I started on a Friday. I barely ate. She would just
Wow.
bring me food. Like it channeled. And um yeah, I kinda left it as is. I did a few edits and not a whole lot. So, I know people, tell me that there's spelling mistakes and stuff that are in it, and I'm like,
Doesn't
"Yep,
matter. Mhm.
doesn't matter." It channeled out, and I'm just leaving it the way that it is. So
So, but why would people what's it about a little bit for people maybe that have never heard about your book or
so,
excuse me.
stepping through the door Actually, the picture that's on the cover of that ebook too, which you can get for free on my website, which is just my
Oh,
name, kerrylynshellhorn.com. So I give it
okay.
to people for free.
That's so sweet.
It's giving you tools and talking about taking ownership of your healing journey, taking ownership of and accountability, and recognizing that we are all connected. And the more that we do, the more we can have a purposeful life that
Mhm.
is connected to all that is.
Mhm.
So
I love that. You know what? I Spirit, I kept hearing them. I sound so distracted tonight. I'm sorry, but I don't know what it is between us when we do
you
shows, but I'm
know,
getting all this communication and they're literally feeding it to me and I'm hearing it. I'm trying to hear you. And they kept saying, ask about the book, ask about the book. I'm telling you right now, just so you know, if you're listening, I put Kerrilyn's website on the post on my Facebook profile, everywhere on social media. Her address or web, my mouth is not working. Web address is in there, like to get your website, okay?
yeah.
Because people are going to message me. How do I get a hold of that? How do I get a hold of it? And I know there's a lot of people that are going to be very grateful that you spent that time channeling it and sharing it for free. So thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
it
you.
just all channeled out. And the tools that I was using at the time when I was in my lowest point to move out of that into creating that magical, purposeful life, being of service, all the tools that I used are in that book as well too.
I love it. Okay, so how can they get a hold of you? Tell them what you got coming up again in case somebody just tuned in and
Okay,
everything, wherever you want to go.
so Spirit Switchboard is on the United Public Radio Network Fridays at 5 Eastern
Eastern.
Time.
Mhm.
Yep, 5 Eastern Time. So you can connect there. I'm on Facebook and Instagram. On Instagram, it's the original Kerrilyn Shellhorn. So do be mindful that there are imposter
A
accounts.
lot.
So there are a lot. And you can, if you go to the website, which is just kerrylynshellhorn.com, all of the icons are there that are going to take you to mine originally. And I do have a really cool event if you are more local to me, Guelph, Ontario, coming up Friday, October the 13th, which is so cool. So we're
Oh,
doing,
Friday the 13th. Mhm.
yeah, we're doing an event at the Harrison Theatre in Harrison, into Ontario. It's a Victorian seance with a modern twist.
Oh my
So
gosh, I need to go to
we're gonna
that.
do a live trance channel at the beginning. We're gonna do double Estes method if you are into
No
paranormal
way. Oh my gosh.
investigations, and then I'm going to go into the psychomantium room, and we're gonna do that. There's lots gonna happen that night. So,
I live
but
so far away from Guelph, but who knows if I put it out there, maybe manifest. Because I would love to see that or
yeah,
participate.
it's
It would
gonna
be
be a
so
really
much
fun
fun.
event.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
super
So
fun.
I'm obviously you need to be there physically. Are you making it like whoever wants to come? Are you limited in size or
Well, it's a theater event, so the theater seats
limited by?
210 people. So we'll see
That's
where it
okay.
goes. And I mean, I do these events called Dining with the Dead and Spirits and Sweets, where it's in restaurant venues. And the venues that I've been working out of, I've been working out of for years, and we just consistently from the end of March, beginning of April to beginning of November, every 6 weeks. It's kind of like this
That
big
is so
rotation.
cool. I just love it. And
Mhm.
you guys, just so you know, she had on, I'm going to say the only real that does a lot of stuff, paranormal group in Thunder Bay. She asked me if I'd heard of them. It's Lucky Paranormal, right?
Mhm.
And I go, no, I don't think so. But I did hear of them. I just wasn't thinking of the name. And that's so cool you had them on.
Yeah, because I just love the Northern Shore. It's so magical. You have like so much. I think they call them UAPs now, so we are supposed to say UAPs and not
Yeah,
UFOs. Bigfoot. There's so much history along the shore of Lake Superior, and it's my favorite place to be. So
it is beautiful.
I wanted to have that group on to talk about the love of the Northern Shore for sure.
Well, I
And I
love
do have the Facebook group. So if you do
Oh,
go
good. I was going
to,
to bring that up.
yeah, if you do go to the Facebook page, there is a link that will take you, and it is a private group. And I post intuitive practices every day, and on the full moon days, I do go in and do energetic cord cutting and a meditation and give a few messages in
You
there
were
as well
so
too.
powerful. Like I being a Friday, we usually have takeout night. We've always had it since my kids were little, right? For my son. And then, I really with timing, but I decided I'm going to go. And I was so glad that I did, because I think I was kept writing in the chat, oh my gosh, like I'm feeling flutters and
yeah.
really powerful.
And what's interesting for me when I'm doing those nights is I'm feeling what everybody's got happening physically. So, I'm tapping in at the same time to all of you guys collectively on a physical level. So I know where I'm needing to pull energy off of everybody next.
Well, it was powerful. So thank you. I hope you'll come back on.
Yeah, I would love to.
I won't
There's
have
always lots to talk about.
I know so much. Well, like I said, I got in like 4 hours before. I have no internet out there, but I wasn't canceling this because I was looking forward to it. So I'd love to have you back on again. You've got more stories to tell. I know you do. And not that my mouth does not want to work tonight. I swear to God. Getting ready for my birthday, I guess. No, you've got, I'm sure, a lot more experiences and things like that to share. So make sure you guys tune in to Spirit Switchboard on Friday. If you ever want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me on facebook.com/The Angel Rock. You want to book a reading, healing session. I do Akashic Records. I do mentoring. I don't know why I'm going to add this. I'm hearing it from Spirit. I don't charge for the paranormal. I think a lot of people don't, right? Like that I've met that are really in it as of service to other people.
Yeah.
So I don't. If you need help, and if I can't help you, there's enough people I can usually connect depending on.
That's it, right? Like we know people that we can network to help, and we're not all experts at certain things, right? Like
I agree.
It's not our jive, that kind of stuff, but we know somebody who is more into those
that's
things.
Pulling ego out of it. Like, right. And that's exactly what I always say, that if I can't, maybe I can't help you with that, but somebody that's doing it and that's their thing that they do all the time, they'll be able to help you. We know the people. So I agree with you.
Yeah.
So also I will be back on Thursday with David Hansel with The Thing at the Foot of the Bed at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I have 2 groups on Facebook, Paranormal University for all things paranormal, and the Angel Rocker Tribe for kind of the spiritual stuff and things we were talking about tonight. So thank you so much for all being here. I'm dragging my butt. Like I said, I didn't get much sleep. So I'll be more wide awake on Thursday, I promise everybody. But I'm so glad you're all here. And just one other thing I want to share. I get this all the time. I'll get people that'll tune in because it'll look like we're live on Facebook and they'll realize they weren't there. Don't worry about it. There is always a replay there, whether it's Facebook or YouTube.
Yeah.
Also, anywhere where podcasts and talk radio are carried, we're there. You can find us. Lastly, if you guys are loving the paranormal, stay tuned next for Philip and Julia Syracusa with the Horsefly Chronicles. All right. Take care, guys. We'll see you Thursday. Hang on, I got to hit my little buttons here.